Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. Gain valuable insights by attending the podcast, then complete the assessment test to download your certificate. To do this, follow these simple steps. Click on the link in your description to access the session. Create a free account and attend the podcast. After the podcast, take the assessment test and download your certificate. It's easy, and it's free. We highly recommend checking out our subscription. Let's get started.
Absolutely, absolutely. You use some very innovative strategies to scale your firm. Can you talk about what strategies have you used which have been most effective in growing your business?
Yeah. I ran up to 1 million pretty quickly. So when I bought it, so when I started the practice, about 100,000, give or take, and then I grew it to about 500 when I bought it from him. So about 500,000, and I grew it there pretty quickly just by doing different, like I said, Google and growing with software vendors, and we had some partnerships, and we gained a bunch of clients that way, and it was a fun ride, but it was also a nightmare, the growth, like because I'm churning people along the way too, because I don't know how to manage people. So I'm hiring people and then hiring the wrong people sometimes, or just making a lot of mistakes that way. And I ran up to 1 million pretty quickly, 1.2 million pretty quickly, about 2016.
Yeah.
And most of those strategies were just, again, like I said, partnering with software vendors or just finding different partnerships to leverage. We partnered with another franchise in the area, and we did all of their franchisees' taxes. And that led to other extra work that we can do on top of that. So different partnerships and leveraging bigger opportunities. And I always had an eye for big things. I always wanted to continue to grow and keep growing, but I hit a ceiling at like 1.2 million. I hit a ceiling and I couldn't get past that. It was like maybe a 5 year, like stunted of growth. And then we found EOS. And so among growing and finding that rapid growth, I was obviously still messing things up and breaking things along the way too. So we couldn't keep growing past.
Welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast we're trying to figure out. I'm your host, Saul, and today we have a truly inspiring and unconventional story to share. I'm joined by Scott Scarano, an accounting firm owner who has transformed his life in extraordinary ways. From early challenges to leading a successful accounting practice, Scott's journey is anything but traditional. Today, we'll dive into his story, the lessons he's learned along the way, and how he's innovating the accounting industry. Scott, thank you for joining us today.
Dope. Thanks for having me on, homie.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We got the
Scott,
same initials. You know this.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a
absolutely.
lot of S's in this room.
I'm not going to comment on that. But anywho, so Scott, you had quite a journey, from facing significant personal challenges to becoming a successful firm owner. There's a lot we can learn from your experience. So before we get into the details, can you give us a brief overview of your background and what inspired you to enter the accounting profession despite your unconventional start?
Now, my start was actually very, very conventional. My grandfather was a CPA, and he had a CPA firm in New York, and he was pretty successful. He had employees, and I always saw that as like the sign of success. He had his name on the building, that was the name of the firm. And my dad worked at his firm too. And so that was like sort of a model for me. My dad became a CPA as well. He never really had his own practice. He ended up working in software, but in accounting software too. So I've been always surrounded by accounting technology and accounting. Although when I got to school, I went to school for accounting. That's what I was going to do. That was originally the plan. And then somewhere along the way, things got I got bored. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to wake up early. I wanted to have a different lifestyle. So then I moved my major and I wanted to make movies and I wanted to be a screenwriter. I also wanted to be a rapper. I wanted to be an entertainer. I was doing a lot of different things then. I also had my own business too. It was moderately, I know you're kind of alluding to that and what the trouble that I got into in the past, but I was moderately successful with my side business, and I was also very successful in the creative pursuits that I was doing. I had a TV show in production for the school, and I was writing screenplays, and I wasn't really rapping yet, but I really wanted to be a rapper, and I was sort of starting to write and prepare that kind of venue into entertainment. And I was doing well. I mean, I was also selling drugs. So that was like the underlying item here was I was also doing a lot of things that probably weren't very healthy. Probably
Yep.
weren't, obviously it was I was breaking the law. I was economically stable. I was making money. I was profitable in my business, but I got caught. And I wasn't a very good drug dealer because obviously I got caught. I was making a lot of mistakes. I was doing a lot of bad things. And
Right.
I had to, then I got kicked out of the school I was in. I
Mhm.
ended up then going back into accounting after that happened. So let's just say I paid my debt to society. I did what I needed to do. And I worked 3 jobs at that point. I was working at my parents' software company. I was working 2 different restaurants, and I was back in school full time for accounting. And
Okay.
everything from that point forward was all accounting. I was going to get my CPA. That was going to be an uphill climb. Um,
Yep.
but we spoke with the board, and they said I still would be able to take the exam. Um, I'd have to write a letter, obviously, because at that point, like this was fresh off. I've got a felony at that point. So I've got to explain that. I ended up working at a couple of different CPA firms in audit, um, and it just it, that all made sense to me. I loved accounting, and accounting was easy to me. But the problem was it was too easy for me in school, and I had placed out of all the math classes, and I was going and start doing the accounting classes, and it was just everything made sense. It was just crystal clear, but it was too, I was good at it. I was just too, it was too easy. And I
Yeah.
wanted something, and all the creative stuff was a bit of a puzzle, a different kind of puzzle though, right? I say accounting's a puzzle and working with numbers is a puzzle, but those creative pursuits were, it was a different kind of, it's a different part of your brain that you're working when you're doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So back to my accounting journey, I ended up finishing my degree. Um, I ended up I ended up becoming an EA because based on the firms that I worked at and the job that I ended up taking, it was a smaller firm working with small businesses, and eventually the CPA thing just didn't make sense. The guy I worked for, he was an EA as well, and we were growing with small businesses, and that was the heart of it. That's where I was really reignited again with the fuel and the passion for actually running a business. It wasn't just the accounting then. It was we were helping small business owners, and we were doing taxes, but we were also doing write up and accounting. And so, I felt like part of the community too because we were helping. And so that was it. I started working at this smaller firm, and um, when I interviewed there, he wasn't going to start me at a high salary, but he also said I had the potential to grow it and do sales and get a cut of that. So I was very interested in growing his business because I would make more money, but I would also get to do different things than just the accounting work too. I'd be working directly with clients. I'd be getting new clients too. So he sent me to um, some marketing classes and different, and it was just, yeah. So I don't know where I ended up with your question, but that's kind of how I got started with the firm that I'm at now. I ended up buying the firm from him 5 years later. I grew it, and now that's the firm I'm running. So
Wow. That's amazing. It's a truly amazing journey. And I definitely want to talk on that as well. But before that, let's talk about, you know, the transformational event that happened in your life. I know that, dealing drugs was not a path that anybody would want to take, but eventually that happened. And I always believe that every adversity is either an opportunity or a lesson learned. And I'm pretty certain through that experience, you did acquire certain skill sets that really helped you shape your career. And, after everything happened, because you were not happy with the way accounting was and you wanted to do something creative, and then that happened. But then you eventually went back to accounting. So I would really love to know about that experience, what you learned through that experience, and then what really got you to move back into accounting.
yeah. Um, So what's the question?
So the question is, when you were in your college and you were in this pursuit, you're pursuing this drug dealing, what skill sets did you acquire?
Business. It was
Yes.
all it was all intuition for me. I always had businesses, or I always had some kind of hustle and a way to make money. So to
Yeah.
me, it was serving several roles. Um, I always was like, the last one at the party too. So I would meet everybody. I'd talk to everybody. I used to call myself social chameleon because you could put me into any room with anybody, and I'd probably get to know most of them by the end of the night. Um,
Uh-huh.
Obviously, like when we're talking about illicit substances and things like that, that's usually out late at night too, especially in college. So
Yep.
I just saw business opportunity because somebody has to provide it for everybody. And I made some connections and with the people that I could talk to outside of the classroom or outside of other places. And so I met the right people or I made the right connections. And then it was, I became a source for that, but I was learning how to manage inventory. I was at one point, I know I've shared this story before, but I was selling three different options too. So it was then that was intuitive to me. And maybe I saw that out in the real world, but I did it and it was profitable. So any option that somebody picked, I was still making money on all three of them in different ways too. I
Right.
was still profitable, but I was like, you learn what the customers want. It was you really don't really need that much customer service as far as that goes because the product's selling itself. So I learned what products have the highest demand. And,
Yes.
so again, I was doing things that I probably shouldn't have been doing. I'm not trying to make this glamorous or anything like that, but I was just learning from the market. And I had done, I had other different types of businesses before that too. So when you get arrested for something like that, you don't think, oh, wow, I just obtained all of these valuable skills that I'm going to take to business later one day that I'm going to
Yeah.
apply. It wasn't that I was thinking like that. It was just things that lodged in the back of my head that, that's how I was running my business then. That's how I'm running my business now. And I started to draw similarities as I figured out, wow, I'm selling my accounting services with three options and I have similar tactics or I'm doing similar things. And I didn't
Yeah.
notice it. You kind of just pick up life skills over time too.
Right. 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 Now that's transform. I mean, that's really great. But you wanted to also pursue creative pursuits. So did you not think that, after this devastating event in your
That's what I
life?
thought my life was destined to be. I thought I was destined to be an entertainer. And that's
Yeah.
what my dream was. It still is that same dream. And I'm fulfilling it in a different way and I'm entertaining in a different way now. We could get to
Mhm.
that, but it's still the same thing. It was just then it was full front, like this is what I'm going to do. And I was studying all of the greats like Quentin Tarantino and directors and entertainers and people that were storytellers. So that was what my passion was. And I was writing scripts and you know, it was encouraged too by the people around me. And
Yeah.
so everybody was creative in those pursuits. I was majoring in communications at that point. So it
Wow.
wasn't like, I had my parents telling me you're not going to really make any money doing this or you're not, they were very discouraged by it.
Yeah.
Um, Once they found out everything else that was going on too, they were even more discouraging and I ended up going back into accounting. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's
And
okay. Like that was the point too. I was supposed to go into accounting in the first place, but
yeah.
I got sidetracked.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. But, nonetheless, like you've turned things around. This is where you are, and this is where I want to get into, because about your business. Let's talk about your business, the business side of things. You started your own accounting firm, which you mentioned that you actually bought over from the owner, and it's currently approaching around 2 million in revenue. So, what are the initial steps you took to get your firm off the ground? Or tell me the story about how did you do
Do
it?
you want to earn CPE credit? Take this course of My CPE to earn free credit. Click the link in the description to get started.
The foundation was laid in the beginning. I stumbled upon a franchise. So he had a system already. So the
Yeah.
firm that I started working at was a franchise and they had their system in place. It was locked in as far as how to work with clients and this chart of accounts that we used and the way to interact with businesses. They had a lot of valuable things to offer. But at the baseline, it was a very small firm too. He was just working very small, but I had big dreams. I wanted to grow this. I wanted to grow it. And, he's encouraging me to grow it. He's encouraging
Mm-hmm.
me to do marketing. And I was doing things differently too. So this old established system that the firm had was to go door to door and do your marketing to businesses locally. Walk in, ask them if they like their accountant. These were the tips they were giving me. And I said,
Yeah.
what if we did stuff online? And I
Yeah.
completely reopened the idea of what marketing was to them because they said nobody goes online to look for their accountants. This was years ago. But I was questioning, why don't you just set up a nice website and get people to come in that way? So that's what I invested my time in. They kind of discouraged it at first. Obviously, now times have changed
Yeah.
significantly, but I was growing a lot through Google. So I set our firm up, and then I started growing through partnerships that I had with other software vendors too, because we were getting their clients. So I partnered with Zero, and we
Wow.
grew very rapidly because we were one of the few accountants that specialized in Zero. So I thought this was sort of our niche. That was our niche market. So we're growing on Google, we're growing with Zero, and we became the fastest growing franchise in the system too. So my firm was growing, and that was my small pond I was swimming in too, was I was comparing myself to all these other franchisees, and I became, the biggest firm in the US at one point, and I was pretty young doing it. So I was like very highly like motivated to continue to grow my firm. And I was doing all kinds of things to grow, but it was just things that were different than maybe the rest of the franchise or the rest of the people were doing in my little circle.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the patterns that happen in my life. I'm always ended up doing things completely different than everybody else just to see, what happens if I do break the rules a little bit and do things a little bit differently. What's going to happen? And test the limits, as I did in college, as I continue to do franchise that I'm in. They're telling me to do something, and I'm doing it completely differently. And then eventually, they end up changing the way they're doing it, and they're doing it the way I was doing it.
Wow.
So I'm getting positive reinforcement, or that feedback loop was reinforcing the stuff that I'm doing differently. And at first, you met with dissent or discouragement, and people are like, "That's never going to work. What are you, questioning what you're going to do too?" So that's happened a lot in life or in running my business. And sometimes you do something that's completely different and it doesn't work. You don't hear of it again, but you do something
Yeah.
completely different and it does work, then you're going to hear of that one. So it's a lot of, doing things that were obviously probably not a good idea, and they weren't a good idea. I didn't do that again, right? But you learn from your mistakes, you learn from your hiccups along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. You use some very innovative strategies to scale your firm. Can you talk about what strategies have you used which have been most effective in growing your business?
Yeah, yeah. I ran up to 1 million pretty quickly. So when I started the practice, about 100,000, give or take, and then I
Uh-huh.
grew it to about 500 when I bought it from him. So about 500,000, and I grew it there pretty quickly just by doing different, like I said, Google, and growing with software vendors, and we had some partnerships, and we gained a bunch of clients that way, and it was a fun ride, but it was also a nightmare, the growth, like because I'm churning people along the way too, because I don't know how to manage people. So I'm hiring people and then hiring the wrong people sometimes, or just making a lot of mistakes that way. And I ran up to 1 million pretty quickly, 1.2 million pretty quickly, about 2016.
Yeah.
And most of those strategies were just, again, like I said, partnering with software vendors or just finding different partnerships to leverage. We partnered with another franchise in the area, and we did all of their franchisees' taxes. And that led to other extra work that we can do on top of that. So different partnerships and leveraging bigger opportunities. And I always had an eye for big things. I always wanted to continue to grow and keep growing, but I hit a ceiling at like 1.2 million. I hit a ceiling, and I couldn't get past that. It was like maybe a 5 year like stunted of growth. Um, and then we found EOS. And so among growing and finding that rapid growth, I was obviously still messing things up and breaking things along the way too. So we couldn't keep growing past a certain point. We'd have attrition. We'd grow and then we'd lose a bunch of clients, or we'd lose people and
Yeah.
things like that. But EOS created systems for everything. That's entrepreneurial operating system based on book traction, probably pretty widespread at this point. A lot of people talk about it, but this was around 20, I don't know, 2016, 2017 when I found it. And that completely changed how I
Absolutely.
ran the firm and changed us. So
Well,
the combination of technology and doing things differently and finding new marketing ways to market in this world of the cloud, everything is different now than it
yeah.
was 10 years ago.
No,
So
absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned about, innovative tactics like menu pricing, can you explain what that is and why you decided to implement it?
and say that again. I mentioned what?
You know, you mentioned about menu pricing, right? So can you explain
What's
what
that?
is menu pricing?
What's menu pricing? I said that?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't. I don't know what that
like
is.
three different options, like the menu pricing.
Oh, menu pricing. Ah, I
Yeah.
thought you said menu pricing. Menu pricing. I
Yeah.
learned that from Ron Baker.
All right.
I don't know if I learned it from him because I was already doing it, but then when I saw him and other teachers teaching this method of pricing, value pricing was
Right.
the other layer that I added to it. So giving three options, giving a menu, I again I learned that from my own business and when I was running it and the different things that I was doing. So giving clients options to me just seemed logical because then they would buy something. They're more likely to buy from you if you give them the options than if they create the options themselves and they go out on the
Right.
market and they find three different firms and three different prices. If you gave them a price range of different prices, then they're more likely to say yes to one of those. That was like sort of intuition to learn that because everybody's doing it. At that point too, Netflix was offering three options. Every all of the software vendors were offering three options, and my head was in the software world too. So I wanted
Yeah.
to be like a software company and do things like them. So at the firm, that's kind of what we did.
Wow. That's interesting. You adopted digital marketing and, putting your business on Google and everything. And when you're talking about this, it brings me to this concept in digital marketing. They said that if you're going to be putting anything anywhere, it follows four things: attention, interest, desire, action. And by you putting, like, when you actually give them just these three options, you are able to fulfill all those four things in just one go. You're getting their attention. If they're really looking for it, you got their interest. When they're talking about those options and what it was a desire, and then the action is very straightforward. They got the options ready, they just got to decide which one to go forward, and they can just boom. It's the decision making is quicker, I guess, in that option.
Yeah, yeah, that's dope.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's a fresh approach, and when I talk about fresh approach, I also noticed that you do this podcast called Sons of CPAs.
No, it's evolved since then. It's accounting high now.
Oh yeah,
So,
nice.
yeah, sons of CPAs have graduated middle school and we're in high school now. So it's accounting high. Mhm.
Yeah, but there's a thought behind it, that you're doing it with your partner. Why did you start that podcast? What was your purpose of starting that podcast? And what is the change that you're looking to achieve through that podcast?
So I had a lot of free time when I found EOS, and I kind of grew to the point we skipped a little bit about my firm journey. So I kind of worked myself out of a job at the firm. I got out of every role. I got out of reviewing the returns, and I got out of doing a lot of the work. And then eventually got out of sales too. And I had a lot
Hmm.
of free time on my hands. So I wanted to do something um, that ignited me, and that it was like that bug to do something in the vein of entertainment. That's what I saw as the podcast would be. But it was also like a way to learn more. I could learn more about running my firm, and I can talk to people that have been doing it more longer than me and doing it. And this was it was like a hack to talk to anybody. So I could tell anybody I have a podcast and they'd be willing to talk to me for an hour plus most of the
Yeah,
time. And
yeah.
so I was like, I love talking and I love conversations. I had a friend who also had a podcast. I didn't know anything about podcasting. And so I had a buddy that I met through Zero, Jason Ackerman, who I started that was the Sons of CPAs. And we both knew a lot of people in the Zero world and the kind of Zero bubble. Um, and so we interviewed a lot of accountants kind of like that were what we're thinking, doing things differently. And we didn't really have a theme. It was just, we called it Sons of CPAs because my dad was a CPA. He worked for his dad at his firm. So Sons of CPAs was sort of the joke. It was like Sons of Anarchy.
Uh-huh.
That lasted for a couple years. And then he got real busy and I started to have a lot of other co-hosts and different things. I was doing all kinds of different things than beyond just podcast. I wanted create this world of accounting within this like media that I wanted to do. I wanted to entertain and educate. And so I'm interviewing all kinds of different people, and I turned it into a high school. So it evolved over time. And we're teaching, doing all kinds of different things, but I also started rapping about accounting while I was doing the podcast too. Again, kind of scratching that itch to do the
Yeah.
entertainment stuff. Um, and I'm also meeting new people, and accounting high is like gaining some traction. I got a lot of high profile interviews and stuff. Meanwhile, my firm is running on its own throughout this time. Things are going fine with that, and I'm still learning about everything going on in the profession, and I'm traveling to all these conferences, and I'm meeting all these great people all through this podcast. And I had no real plans on how to monetize it or anything like that, because that wasn't the intention. I just wanted to keep growing something. I was growing the audience instead of just growing, lining my pockets. That's what I was doing at the firm. I was already making money at the firm. So I was kind of doing this to scratch that other itch and be creative again. And so I started rapping, and that led to all kinds of opportunities like to perform at conferences. So I've performed at maybe over 15 different times since in the last 2 years at
Yeah.
different conferences. I'm just coming off of a ZeroCon. But, on the main stage, I performed Zero's rap. I wrote a rap for them and did that on the main stage there. And I've done that at a couple other ones throughout the last couple of years, all in the US. I did travel to Italy once, but it wasn't a performance for accountants. It was just with Expensify. But it's because I did a rap for them. I wrote a rap for them. So they invited me to their thing. So it was just like, I'm doing different things. To me, like this seemed logical. To the next step from podcasting to then going into rap and making it fun. I saw other people kind of doing it too. They were taking other industries, were like bridging rap and making some fun, entertaining, like sales raps. I saw that for SaaS and other things. So I'm like, oh, I could do this in accounting. And then I saw somebody else that actually already done it too.
Yeah.
So it was like paving the way for me. So
Well, well, you mentioned that somebody else has done it. I'm not sure if it's the same person that I have in my mind, because when I saw that you are a rapper, I said that, now this would be the second CPA I'll come across who's also a rapper. I
so
mean,
Drew
they,
Carrick, the rapping CPA, that's the other one that I know of.
yeah, and then there's this other gentleman called the one that I had in mind was this gentleman called Joshua Jansen. He's known as
Ah,
JJ the CPA.
JJ the CPA did a rap. I know he did. He didn't
Yeah.
actually rap on it. He has somebody else doing it.
Oh, is it?
But he was another inspiration for me. I do like his rap. Yeah.
Yeah.
JJ the CPA, money don't sleep. Yeah,
So
it's
sweet.
yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did have the opportunity to talk to him, and I asked him that, because he says in his rap, he said, you never quite met a CPA like me. And I'm like, where did you pick that
Yeah.
up? And he's like, I picked it up in a Kid Rock concert. I mean, while watching a Kid Rock concert, he picked it up and he just did it. But not as much as you, because, he probably just did it as a one-off thing, but you're like heavily invested into it. You
I
actually
know, I'm very invested in it. I've dedicated my life to it just because of my passion for it. It's been fueling me. Like this is, and I'm getting better at it too. Each one I do is getting like a little bit more advanced. So it's my school now. I'm learning how to rap. I'm learning a new skill that I didn't know how to do more than 2 years ago. So I've done about 26 of these raps, and I keep saying that I'm gonna put the mic down and I'm done after the next one. And then I find this other opportunity, or somebody else reaches out and says they want one or something like that. And I get excited about it. And then I want to do the next one. So I got another performance coming up in Santa Rosa for BotKeepers AI Unchained conference. And I did a brand new one for them. That was a fun one. And then I got something that Ohio Society of CPAs reached out, and they wanted me to do something to get in front of their high school students. So I did one for them fairly recently too. And then this rapping CPA, this other guy, he wants to pick up the mic again. So I got a track coming out with him too. So
Oh,
not
wow.
JJ. I would like to do a track with JJ. He would be fun. But this
Yeah.
other guy, the rapping CPA, we got a track coming out together. So I don't know where this, like, I'm still doing the podcast and I still have my firm, but I find these other ways to channel my energy too. We also do a tournament at Accounting High called the Accountant Bracket Challenge.
Wow.
So that's garnered the interest of about 4,000 accountants in its second year.
Mhm.
Everybody's excited about it because you get to vote on your favorite things in accounting. So, like you vote on your thing to win the Final Four or win the championship, just like the college basketball tournament.
Yeah.
64 different things in accounting are all competing to win the champion of the Accountant Bracket Challenge or the ABC tournament. So tune into
Nice.
that next year. It'll be in during tax season is when we have it. Maybe my
Wow.
CP. I don't think my CP has made it into the tournament, but you'll have to get nominated. It's the people who vote for everything in that tournament.
Wow. Honestly, I didn't even know about it. And now that you mention it, I'm definitely gonna check that out, you know.
Well, you
And
guys should definitely be a part of it. Definitely at least participating in it next year.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. And I'm just curious to know, like you wrapped it all these other places. Now you're gonna be doing a bot keepers event as well. So how does that conversation go? Does that usually just go like you do it with any other client? Like if somebody were to come for their tax issues, you drill down their needs and everything and then you make it, or do you just wing it?
For the rap, I'm not
Yeah.
freestyling. I'm writing them, and so far all of them have been just remixes of popular songs. So I'll just
Uh,
take what is already like popular and I'll change it and give it some kind of accounting flair or
uh,
whatever the message is I'm trying to deliver. So the app raps that I've done, I just take their product and whatever it is that people like about it and rap about that. Like, usually you get that through the word on the streets and what people are saying about it. One of the first ones I did, it was easy because they had a lot of good feedback from their audience. So I just took those collections of like testimonials and I used that to do some acrobats with it and fit it into the same narrative. It's just telling stories. So I'm just telling a story with those
wow.
verses.
Wow. I mean, it's
We
so
can play
amazing.
one at the end if your audience might want to hear. I don't
Yeah,
know. I got
absolutely.
a few.
I mean, I so wanted to know if that could be possible, but you read my mind. All right, we're definitely gonna have that. But coming back to your business, while you're doing everything, all this, and then you also have to manage this business. I, how do you manage your firm? Like when you're traveling and everything, and you
I've got a
so
great team. I got a great team that's managing it, just the way I did went back when I was doing it. I mean, obviously things are more stable now because when I was in charge, I had everybody looking right and then looking left and then looking right again. And I wanted to do the next new thing and do this differently. Just like I'm doing with this accounting high stuff or the raps. I'm doing all these crazy things and changing my mind and doing this differently. I was doing that at my firm. And that
right.
wasn't easy for the team, especially the people that like some kind of stability with their job and they want to just do good work.
Mhm.
So I've got the right people in charge, and these are the people that have been working with me for a long time. One of my operations manager has been with me almost 10 years now, over 10 years now, I think. Um, so all of this has been like, the foundation is set, and I step out of the way, and all of a sudden everybody appreciates their job a lot more, and they like what they're doing, and they like the systems and the things that I set up that were working. They just don't want any change. Or at least they haven't had any for the last 2 years. So there's some more stability in the firm. And it's running, and I trust them, and I know that they're doing a good job, and I know that they're looking out for the best interest of the clients, and they still have good client relationships, and the clients are still really happy. So as long as that's cool and everything's going well and we're still profitable, obviously, then I can have my fun, I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know if this is like it to me, I'm like pursuing this next phase of my career and I don't know where that leads or what that is, but it's fun.
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE's Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now.
Well, I always like to ask this question because I believe the way I see it, I think you must have been one of those early adopters of digital transformation where you want things to be managed remotely and everything. But was this before the pandemic or was the pandemic the transformation? Was
Pandemic was probably a catalyst for some other big changes. That's a good question. So we had already had all the systems in place to be able to work remotely, but I still
right.
had an office and I still told everybody they had to come into the office a certain number of days. They could work at home 2 days a week, maybe, but you still
Hmm.
got to come into the office. This is my rules. Didn't know,
Yeah.
I thought that's what we needed. We had a nice office. it was everybody did like going to work, but they could work from home. I had all the tech. They didn't need to be in the office. We didn't have a server. They were all work. Everything was in the cloud. They could do it from anywhere as long as they had a laptop. Um, we had all the right, software and the workflow systems in place. We used Carbon at our firm, and that was a, you know, enabler for us to be able to just during COVID work from home fully. So everything that we did was remote. And then I was in Mexico for the early part of COVID, and they were
Hmm.
surviving just fine without me. That's when I really realized, and I had a mindset shift of like, I did trust them running the firm without me. Like, and I knew that, and, in some ways, I, I questioned it, or I wasn't certain, like, this is what I felt guilty in some ways because I got them working and I'm sitting here like messing around on a podcast and stuff. But I realized like they're working just as hard as they were before. If not, they enjoy what they're doing better and they have more responsibilities now too. And more is, as far as my management team goes, more is on their shoulders too. And they have taken on a higher level of responsibility that they didn't have before. And they appreciate that. And they've grown up and they've stepped up to the plate when they needed to.
Yep.
And it allows me to, then go off and do my other stuff. Now, I feel like at some point I got to go back to the firm and help. And I still do. I'm still like present. I maybe spend few minutes with them, on some morning calls whenever they need me. But usually they're pretty self sufficient. So, I think I need to step in, and maybe we need to hire somebody at some point. Maybe we need to grow a little bit more, but we've been pretty stable. Things have been pretty good for a while. So I feel like you got to push people sometimes or they get too comfortable.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, absolutely. And I guess, at, at what you're talking about, I really see that, I think it's a beautiful balance between leadership and delegation that comes across. And you have had your own experience of transformation, like you talked about the change in the mindset when you were in Mexico and the pandemic happened, and that change in mindset. So how has your approach to leadership, evolved over the years while working for a firm to managing a firm and managing people and the pandemic and
yeah.
everything?
I used to try to be a good leader and I was
Uh-huh.
terrible.
Uh-huh.
I was
Tell me
not
about
very good at all. I used to try too hard. I used to try to care about things that I, like, or try to be somebody that I wasn't, or try to do, and it, I failed a lot of most of the time. But that's how I kind of learned that, and it was through what other people would say to me to reinforce just being me, and just like I did care about these people and I did care about how they did. I didn't have to try to do what this person said you're supposed to do or this person said you're supposed to do. I can go with my gut most of the time, and usually it turns out that that's, the right thing to do if I'm just doing the right thing with them. And
it.
so I've
Hmm.
kind of changed trying to do something this way because this person says this, and just kind of going with um, better intuition and having some other moral guiding light. And obviously, on the surface, we have core values and we have things that we've done. And, we've created this structure within the firm where everything's clear and transparent. But that's also because that's how I think it should be. I think everybody should be able to see everything and have a clear view on what the vision is. And so that was, part of setting up the right structure was to realize, okay, they see me like I don't have to try to be a leader. I'm just leading. I'm just doing. So
Okay,
I
that's
think it's
interesting.
it's different though. Like I don't like to define it either because obviously it's different. Everybody's a different type of leader too, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this other person that's running their firm, they're a leader in their own way too. And I think you have to tap into, what is it? Why are the people? How are you motivating them? And what are you motivating them? Where where's the compass they're pointing at? Is everybody motivated in this for the same reason, going in the same direction? Then you can trust them for the decisions they need to make when you're not there. You don't have to make every decision too. That's very important. Um,
Wow. Wow. You bring out a very important point. Trust. Because I guess that goes a long way. The leaders that I've spoken to, especially with the pandemic, when everybody had to shift to that acceptance of having everybody work from home, everybody had that fear of loss of productivity when you have because of that trust and everything. Did you ever also go through that dilemma of fear of losing
We started
productivity?
tracking time. We started
Uh-huh.
doing things that we didn't do in the past. And usually it's to accommodate for one or two bad people. That's
Uh,
what we learned in hindsight, but we're still tracking time now. And we have a team in the Philippines. And so it's like trust but verify is one thing that they said a lot in EOS or you know, you can trust everybody, but if you have good systems in place to hold them accountable and verify what they're doing, then you can't just trust blindly either. Like I do have good systems in place that the structure is there. I think we could take away tracking of time and we would still be just fine. But because we do that, then it allows, more visibility for, future changes and capacity planning and other things too. So I think there's obviously a balance between, having a camera on somebody every day and watching their every move versus letting them run free. We have unlimited PTO, and I still don't even know if that's the best idea because then it doesn't. Some people don't even take any time off if they have unlimited too. So
yeah,
I'm still trying to figure out. I've been a little too loose with some things, and then maybe we got to tighten them up and change them a little bit. So that just happens over time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But for everything that you've done and the way your life has transformed and the way you are where you are today, I see you as a front runner for change. You're trying to change the way things are, and you want people to move in different directions. But I would definitely want to know your views. Like, if at all there were some people who are just starting their career in accounting, and I were to ask you, what advice would you give them?
So change is always there. You're always kind of evolving and changing too. I want to touch onto that. Change for change's sake or just to change probably isn't a good idea. But if you're seeking better ways and new ways to do things, or you're questioning the norm, then you're inevitably going to change a lot of things and you're going to see a lot of change. I would seek it out. And sometimes it would be to my detriment. I would break things by
Hmm.
changing them and then take steps back. And that was
Hmm.
part of the reason why we weren't growing at one point, too. Um, so I was too anxious to change everything and realized that sometimes things work and the things that are working you don't need to change, and my team would constantly have to tell me that, because I would still want to change it because this person's doing it differently and they're seeing success, or this is, I could see in different ways of doing things and wanting to model off of everybody, but you can create your own model too. So sometimes you got to go with your gut, sometimes you got to know what's working and then invest more in that. So if you find something that is working, then pay more attention to that and invest more time in that. And that's the thing you should change. But then if you find you change something and then it was working out better before, you can always go back to.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we talked enough about business, but I would definitely also want to talk about the other side of you, the rapper side
So
of
I
you.
have I have alter ego, right? So I'm trying to be Scott in this interview. Keep this
Uh-huh.
professional, right? Scott
Okay.
Scarano, that is the professional. That's the one that's
Yeah.
the accountant. But I also have Scotty OKR, and that's like the fun one. That's the one that'll go off into many different tangents and have a lot of fun. We can get to the fun stuff too. So that you can tell them apart, right? My wife says
Yeah.
Slim Scotty. It's like Eminem's
Oh,
alter
nice, nice.
ego. Yeah.
But I mean, like, definitely, I wouldn't want you to go too much off the tangent. Definitely don't want you to leave the Scott Scarano. But I would definitely want to know the story behind how you came up with the word, or like OKR. How did you?
Ah, OKRs, like if you've ever paid attention to what's going on now, you got your KPIs that you need to track, and now you got your OKRs, your objectives and key results. And I saw that out there, and it was just like a cool acronym anyway. And everybody seemed very passionate about their OKRs because it was different than KPIs. Um, KPIs were the leading indicators and the performance indicators. OKRs were like the rocks that were getting you to your goals. It was like breaking down a bigger goal into smaller bits, and those were your OKRs, and people got excited about that. It's more of a management thing too. And I just one day I just had a funny, like, I was like, I can be the OKR, I can be the OK rapper. It was like just a joke. And somebody else that likes OKRs, it was Blake Oliver actually that I was talking to, and he was like,
Yeah.
"That's your rap name." That's the
wow.
best one. I was going through a lot of different rap names, and
Yeah.
at that point I was like, and then other people also thought liked it, and I was doing a DMX song, and DMX is like an acronym as well. So I was
Yes.
like, OKR is, and it could be elusive. You don't have to know what it means. I'm just
Yeah.
OKR. You could whatever you want it to be. But I like to say OK rapper when people kind of know what an objective and key result is. If they don't know what an OKR is, and I say OK rapper, then it's sort of demeaning. Like, and that's part of the point too, is I'm trying to set the bar pretty low because I'm an accountant as well, and I'm also afraid of being just okay. That's a fear of mine. So that was
Yeah.
also why I didn't want to be a rapper, because I wanted to be the best rapper I could ever be. And the best rapper is not just okay. So it's sort of a play on that too. Like if I want to try to be the best, I got to be at least better than okay. So,
Wow. Wow. Well, I think everything that has happened in your life, with your experience in communication, with your education in communication, plus your interest in movies. You mentioned Tarantino. I'm a Tarantino fan myself. Plus the rapping. I'm pretty certain you must have seen 8 Mile Road. You know.
oh yeah. So I've done eight or did Lose Yourself for Bot Keeper last year. And
Yeah.
yeah. Eminem
Yeah.
is my heart. Yeah, that's my compass right there for rap.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mentioned I gather you also mentioned one of your alter egos was the Slim Shady or
Slim
something.
Scotty is what my so yeah. I mean, you got to have your alter ego in rap, and I always was looking for the right rap name. It went from Little Toddler or Lil Toddler to OKR, and then my wife liked Slim Scotty
Wow.
because it's like a play on that. But
Yeah.
it's just like Eminem does. He's got his alter ego.
Absolutely, absolutely. Scott, it's been incredible hearing your story and the insights that you shared. But before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom for our listeners? And probably also play some rap if
Before
possible.
we wrap up, yeah, I mean, if we're gonna wrap up, you know, we're trying to figure it out. WTF, right? Let's
Absolutely.
wrap it up with a wrap. I've got some, I guess I got some words of wisdom or things that I've said throughout this episode, but like I was saying, I'm just kind of going with what I feel is the right direction right now. Like, and that's not really that clear sometimes as far as this accounting high stuff. So the future of it, I've got a couple different pathways that it can be, and the way it could be most beneficial to the audience. So as we try to determine how we're going to monetize it, I don't think it's going to be putting a dollar sign on the education part of it, because I've always wanted the education part to be sort of like back of the classroom free. I like the entertaining stuff. So
Yep.
I don't think it's going to be like a CPE house or a place where you can get that like professional education. I think it's going to be something different than that. I'm not sure. I think it's going to be transformational type courses or different things too. So different type of education you wouldn't get normally in the classroom. Um, so just as a preview for the students, just tune into Accounting High, check it out. We got a ton of guests, almost 300 episodes. Now it's still just a podcast, but it's also on YouTube. Um,
Yep.
Lots of fun. And then all my raps are on YouTube as well, but I'll play one here. Which one do you want to hear? I got a few new ones. I've got the I don't know. Was there one that we mentioned earlier that you want to
Yeah.
hear?
Yeah. The Slim Scotty, the one that you did,
How about I do
inspired.
Eminem? I did a new Eminem one, and I got one that I'm going to perform at the next Bot Keeper conference. It hasn't been performed yet. Nobody's
But
heard this one yet either. This is brand new. I got
all
Ron
right.
Baker on here too. I mentioned him earlier. So
Alrighty. Let's hear it.
this is Eminem's new song, Houdini. This is a remix that calls
Oh
AI
yeah.
Magic, and this is for Bot Keeper. So if
Yeah.
you're in Santa Rosa and you're hearing this before October 9th, check out the conference too.
Yep.
Scott, it's Ron. I was listening to the Bot Keeper rap. Good fucking luck. You're on your own.
Spooky tax at year end. Scotty's back with Calpen. Spooky tax, spooky tax, spooky tax.
Calpen's going to be at the conference too.
Tax,
Just as
spooky
a
tax, spooky tax. Adjusting entry data, data. Adjusting entry data. Well, look where the door swung. Maybe West Coast will have more fun. AI and accounting came before some. Way before the stage, Google in boss done. Still a bright nerd, pulling up with advisors that inspire this AI work in a bot life shirt, serial ambition with intuition to incite firms. And AI Unchained present Cal CPA really. And you know I'm here, okay, it's me. Bot keeper, showcasing wine country with teachers to train advisory. If I was to ask for Chase Berkey, Tim McKenzie to collab with me. Are we dismantling pyramid schemes? I don't know, but I'm glad to rehash with hashtags and some AI stuff. It's like magic. Bot keepers, infinite afters. Like hashtags and some AI stuff. It's like magic. Oof. It just wrecked that transaction. Now, back when I chased remote teams, right around the time I found technology, made me so pleased. My bank was growing. Away associates say I smoke weed, turn me into smiley face emoji. The bit is not CPA appropriate, but did I miss it when Blakey roasted skate them with this defamation posting? Because they have zero now. Actors from the White House, you tune in and you learn how. Back when this Herald found coupon. Put it out. So when I started my firm, I did start off like DrawGen at first, but niche down and client targeted, high bottom line, and my profit has skyrocketed. Look what my bot just did. Yeah, this tech is just like y'all have been adopting it. Clients loving the new feats, and that's why high tech is at live conferences. Not life, y'all get it. When you relate, who respects the comma, White Castle bet, I forget. Oh, that's right, bot keeper. OKR, it's in. Got again. Hashtags and some AI stuff. It's like magic. Bot keepers, infinite apters, like hashtags and some AI stuff. It's like magic. It just wrecked that transaction. Bring it down. Sometimes I wonder what old people would say. What? If they could see the way we automate. It's tech, man. They probably say that AI is okay. Like that's me. Just okay, just okay. Oh, how many little firms still want advisory? Might be better with an AI team. And that's bot keepers thing, just like your bookkeeping done magically, a tool, not a glorified spreadsheet, but run an AI Rex with high accuracy. NPS score 90s, bot T's teaching your firm advisory. Wi-Fi routers at high speed, identifies as tag advising. AI's impact on the pipeline, geez, whole world can't hire, not just my team. AI Unchained for you. The reduce the time spent chasing fools. Workshops, classes while training you. Amazing views, savor wine tastings too. Last back, time billing practice, time to change as if. Hourly, what value price tactics. Go ahead, Ron, spit. Time track wins, all hail subscription. Not my niche. And you'll probably get ticked for that. Hope you enjoyed this guide with impact. Calvin, Cal CP, Cal E, Cal U. CA services with tax. Changes too tough. Patience you all. You run. Just cool off. Revenue costs. Those bots you saw ain't just new, y'all. Future better bookkeeping. Bot keeper and infinite app is better than magic. Like brand new blue Nikes. Air Jordan sneaks. He promises financial insights are easy with hashtags and some AI stuff. It's like magic. Bot keepers, infinite app does. Like hashtags and some AI stuff. It's like magic. It just wrecked that transaction.
Woo-hoo. Ladies and gentlemen, Saul Sony. All right, this was amazing, man. This was amazing. One of the best podcasts I've had, man. You are radical, man. I mean, you're just awesome.
Dope, man. Thank you. That's cool.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
it. I saw you bopping your head. You're
No,
into it. Yeah, it's dope.
It was awesome, man. It was awesome. It was so good, man. Thank you so much for joining us today and also for sharing your journey, especially the rap. I mean, this is gonna blow, man. I mean, this is amazing. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Remember to keep pushing boundaries and innovating in everything you do. Until next time, stay curious and keep striving forward. Cheers.
WTF.
All right.
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE's Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now.